Welcome to the Pursuers of Peak Performance podcast, the podcast for PTs and fitness business owners to produce more. The pursuit of peak performance is an ongoing process to produce next level results in every aspect. The purpose of this podcast is to share the processes and procedures that peak performers use to produce more. My name is Cody McAuliffe, and I'm the founder of the Pursuers of Peak Performance podcast. I see the proverbial bar of the standards within the fitness industry is way too low. My purpose and my passion is to raise that bar so that the fitness industry can live up to its potential. Let's get into the episode. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in for today's episode. Today we have an absolutely phenomenal guest. This is someone I've worked with for many years, Dr. Cam Mcdonald. Dr. Cam has a wealth of experience in a variety of industries, starting with exercise science, dietetics, and now works primarily with people on genetic profiling and epigenetics to be able to get them peak performance in every aspect of their life. We go into all of the detail in terms of how he does this and how he educates other health professionals to be able to do so as well, and how to incorporate that and how you can utilize that to be able to increase your business as well. This is something that I utilize in my business since April this year, and it has absolutely phenomenal results in terms of getting better results for my clients, increasing the revenue streams in my business, and also creating an all-encompassing approach to health, fitness, mindset, all of these factors which are all very much individualized. Once I have that base information from doing someone's genetic profile, I can coach them at a higher capacity instantly over and above anything that I could ever do in the past. I very much had the thought process of, all right, I customize, I individualized every single person previously, and I provided a high level of service before doing the course. As soon as I did the course, my level of service just went so much higher that I was providing such a high standard of service to the people over and above what I thought was my potential capacity in the past. And it's been absolutely game changing. I would have to say it's probably been maybe like 10x return on the investment just in the first year, to be able to, probably even more if I think about it. It's probably been more than 10x at least, from April to now December this year for the investment that I made in the course. So I 100% recommend checking out this podcast and finding out a little more about it. If you have any questions on any of this, you can just ask me. I've been going through it. I've implemented it into my business to be able to get my clients next level results. And I also talk about some of the things that I've done myself to be able to get myself that extra peak performance in everything that I do. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to hit me up. Just hit me up on Facebook or something like that in the Facebook group. But thanks again for taking the time out of the day to listen to this episode. It is absolutely phenomenal. Every time I catch up with Cam, I learn so much more, and it is absolutely amazing for him to be able to share this with you guys, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the episode. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. Today we've got Dr. Cam Mcdonald here. Thanks for joining us today, Cam.
Great to be here, mate.
Do you mind if you just give us a bit of a background about, I guess, your history within the industry and where you are today?
Yeah, cool. So I started out, I decided to do exercise physiology way back in the day, before it was really a thing. And I did it because it had sports in the name, which was cool. I thought, yeah, I love sports. Let's go work with sports. And so I deferred for a year, decided I didn't really want to do anything else when I got back because I couldn't find anything else with an attractive title. So I went into a 4-year undergrad for ex-phys. And the first 2 years, I just had an awesome social time. And third year, we were in like some of the first few lectures. And it was just... they were telling us how we can reverse diabetes just through getting people moving right, and how it affects the muscle and how it affects glucose and all that sort of stuff. I said, gee, that sounds amazing. I want to go fix diabetes. So we got to the end of that degree, and I decided that I have to know more about nutrition if I really want to chase this thing and start making a difference to this diabetes monster. And so I went off and did my master's in dietetics, and did a year, it was a 2-year course, a year of research, and then a year of coursework. Learn a heap about metabolism and how physiology works, and got into hospital, started getting into cardiovascular disease in hospital and working with rehabilitation programs with lung disease. And all this stuff, the same stuff started coming up about inflammation and how you can reduce inflammation or how you can use it to create better outcomes for heart disease, but then also into performance with interval training. And this is where sort of the nutrition and the exercise started really coming together, as how these two things started interacting. And then from that, I launched into my PhD in breast cancer and how omega-3 and exercise interact. So I wrote a few papers on sort of the nutrient exercise interactions there. And as you do when you're doing a PhD, it feels like you've got a lot of time on your hands, because you've literally got 4 years of just your own time to get this work done. So I started studying a heap of stuff into brain health and really got into the space of cognitive performance. So I'd already done a heap in corporate health, just with corporate companies. I was working in private practice. And the thing that I was noticing was that no one really gave a crap about heart disease in 30 years. What they cared about was, am I alert now? Can I get my stuff done now? Can I manage the emotion of dealing with this idiot next to me, or my child, or maybe they're the same person? Can I deal with the emotion of that right now? And there's things that you can do with exercise and rest and nutrition that fascinated me. So I started getting this real interest in not just how like the health side of things worked from a physiological effect, but really dialing into that higher level performance. Along the way, I worked with one of the most fantastic sports dietitians around, Peter Carriage. We were business partners, so I got a huge exposure to some really great sports dietetics as well. And so all of that stuff combined sort of led me into, well, what next? Because the systems were starting to come together. I was starting to understand sort of how you can modify not just nutrition, but exercise and even your breathing, and then how you adjust your workflow, all that sort of stuff. And then we started looking at genetics, and that's really where it got really interesting. So virtually I started looking at just straight up DNA testing. And then now, and for the last 4 years, I've been working with a phenotype assessment, which is easily the world's most advanced as far as personalized health tech goes, but also the principles looks to combine how the brain physiology affects the muscle, affects the digestion, affects, your lymph flow, affect, your right toe affecting your left eyelid type stuff, those types of interrelationships around the body. And when you have a look at, I got very interested in how ancient medicine maps into modern medicine, and really having an understanding of how the bigger picture of ancient medicine also has relevance at the small, very microscopic picture of modern medicine, and that very reductive approach. So in all now, I've been practicing, I've seen about 500 clients now with a very strong, or a sole personalized health intent, and that where we're addressing people with people all the way through from like when they should get out in the morning and into the forest versus how they should be interacting socially, how they should be timing their food through the day. And, obviously being from a dietetic background, I've had a huge focus on how you can really modify someone's food to reverse disease is probably one of the most important things from a chronic disease point of view, but then also the performance benefits that we see from just making sure the right food comes in at the right time in the right amount, and then that's changed based on how the body changes as well. Those types of things, once you can get your head around it, and if unfortunately we've had the technology to do it for a few years now, it makes this whole game so much more interesting, so much more powerful. And so for the last little while, so for the last 3 years now, of my job has just been educating health professionals on how to get the most out of their clients using personalized health. We've had some really cool interactions in that space as well. And going forward now, I've quit clinic. I'm not seeing clients anymore. I'm purely just focused on creating a health professional knowledge base that allows them to tap into this personalized health thing and really make some powerful changes with their food, from all the way from really fixing disease right through to, top level athlete stuff, which is what we're looking at now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Obviously got like a wealth of experience and very much heading into something that is going to be essential in the future in terms of personalized health. How does that then, I guess, relate to people getting the most out of themselves to, I guess, then pursue peak performance on an individual basis?
Got it. So pretty much the most important thing when we're talking about personalized health and peak performance is that everybody's different. You might read a book about someone saying, oh, I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and I have my black coffee and I get my jobs out of the road and I go and do my exercise. It's HIIT training and I feel amazing. I've got this energy for the rest of the day. I eat really small in the morning and then I just eat a little bit more through the day and that keeps my energy up. And you go, that is spectacular. And you're reading this book and you go, oh, this guy is, it's incredible what this guy has achieved. The idea of personalized health is there is someone on the other end of that spectrum who needs to be waking up at 8 and waking up at 5 will actually destroy them. And what we see is people who are sitting in that, because a lot of people are sitting in that early bird state. And even though they're night owls, and so they're waking up at 5 thinking they're doing the right thing and getting in at the same time as their CEO. And then they crash at 2, but they've had a bunch of coffees along the way as well, which makes them crash a little bit harder, winds them up a little bit more. Their body may not be great for coffee as well, whereas some other people might absolutely thrive on coffee. So the most important thing is that it actually matters only to you what is best. The idea that when it comes to brain performance, when it comes to physical performance, when it comes to getting the most out of your body, there is an equation and a set of guidelines that are going to allow your body to release energy the best way it can. And that actually changes for different people. So if you're reading a book that is designed, this is the answer for everyone, straight away that book is going to be wrong for 70% of the population. And understanding that is really important. Starting to listen to your body is a whole lot more important. And also the stuff that we're doing now, it's very quantified. So really what you need to unlock your performance is you need to know the best foods for you, like the nutrients that your body needs more than others. You need to understand the time at which those foods are meant to be coming in so that it can match the clock in your brain and the clock in your gut need to be in sync and in harmony. And if you're eating out of sync, it actually messes with the whole rhythm of everything and can really create disease effectively if you're not in sync. And those guidelines, the type of food, the amount, and when you're eating them do change significantly for different people. So my first real message is that there is a different piece of advice for you than there would be for the guru who's written the book. It might work fantastically for you and it might actually match your genes, but there's also an equal chance that it's not going to as well. So the first thing is to just really be aware of your differences and to make sure you're working with the right information.
Yeah, okay, cool. In terms of how that would work then, does that mean that people have to get blood tests to be able to have these tests, or how do they kind of find out that information?
Yeah, so we're qualifying people from a personalized health point of view. There's a couple of ways you can do it. The first way, you can do like a saliva or blood test and get some genes tested. There's a bunch of companies around that do that. And you might get, you'll get your clock genes if you know how to look at it the right way. The program and effectively the knowledge base that I'm using, it's called PH360, and it uses a phenotype model. And what we know from that is that even just using a tape measure and a quite extensive questionnaire, but it's a medical questionnaire, we can actually understand all of your clock genes, like your timing genes. We can understand even your nutrigenomics, the nutrients that are best for you, even getting into your brain physiology and how that maps as well. It's a fairly complex little algorithm. However, by understanding the shape of your body, specifically around bone structures, specifically around where you hold fat, even like the length of your jaw and the thickness of your neck and the thickness of your skull, those types of measures are actually quite indicative of the genes that you have. And also they map very closely to the chronotype, which is that timing that we were talking about before, which is so critical for performance. And what I really like about this phenotype method, and what I mean by phenotype's what you look like on the outside, genotype's your DNA, the phenotype is how those genes have expressed themselves. What I really like about that is that it actually takes into account all that stuff that I was really interested in. So if we know what shape your body is, we actually know how your brain's going to operate. We know how your gut's going to operate. We know what muscle physiology you've got. We know the timing of things. We know how you're going to want to interact socially. We even know how your brain is going to prefer to work with certain things at certain times of days, and also the physical environment that actually makes you feel more comfortable. So all of this is about understanding every single part of your body that could be some sort of input from the environment. If we can take the stress out of that, then it frees your body up to perform better. And the benefit of the phenotype model, which is effectively what I teach, and have had the privilege of passing this information on effectively, is that it takes that information into account very quickly. Whereas if you were to go through the blood tests and the genes, it takes a huge amount of data crunching, and effectively without understanding the structure and the shape and the overall drive of the body, the genetic information is actually too complex to really unpick all of the complexities that we need to really get a good result.
Yeah. Okay, cool. In terms of just understanding a little bit better, what is the difference, I guess, between like genetics and then epigenetics then?
Sure. So genetics is you're born with your genes. So they're exactly the same. As soon as your mum and dad have a really great time and they form an awesome embryo, from that very moment, you've got exactly the DNA that you'll have till when you die. It doesn't change at all. The coding doesn't change at all. But what does change is, the expression of those genes. And so and a really simple way of explaining this is when you go to an island and you just go and hanging out in the summer, you want to take your clothes off, you want to have cold drinks, you actually feel more social, you want to be out and active. So just by changing the temperature, your genes have said, we need to cool down. I've actually got more energy for social stuff. Like I'm going to take off my clothes. So all of these things, your genes actually tell your body to do something. This is they express differently, like they start sweating, those types of things. That's actually a gene expression change. Versus if you were to then go to the Antarctica, your brain would be going, I just want to go and get warm. I just want to go and have a nice warm bath. I want to have a soup. I want to put plenty of clothes on. I actually want time by myself. Your gene expression changes. So at a really simple level, we've got, let's say that you have a coffee. The coffee gene opens up, or your dopamine gene opens up, or your noradrenaline gene opens up, and you become more heightened. You become more alert because your gene is now turned on. Whereas if you don't have that coffee for a while, that gene turns back off, and then you don't feel as heightened anymore. And so that gene is there the whole time. But the epigenetics, the magic of this is if you change the environment, the gene then either turns on or turns off, and then that will create a change in how your body operates. So genetics are hardwired. They don't change ever. Epigenetics is the story of how those genes are selectively turned on or off, and that all is based around the environment. Now, what we know about that is 95% of the diseases that we have on the planet are due to the changes in those genes as opposed to the genes themselves. So you're not a victim to your genes. You can control what your genes do by altering the environment around it.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the factors that you can, I guess, manipulate then to alter that? So you mentioned environment. Are there any others as well?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously that environment one's a good one. We've also got, so every time you eat food, you're changing genetic activation. So the type of food that you put in, you can either give yourself heart disease or you can give yourself health, depending on the food that you're consuming. And those are just different genes that are turning on or off. We have exercise. In one bout of exercise, you actually change the expression of 5,000 genes that they've been able to measure so far. So there's a huge amount of change that happens just from moving, and it's often in a positive way if you're doing the right type of exercise for your body. I should really qualify that. It's not the same for everyone. The other things are if you hang out with people you don't like, that changes the genetic expression in your brain versus if you hang out with people that you do like. So when you're hanging out with people in an environment that you don't like, you'll create stress hormones, and that happens through genes turning on, creating those hormones. Whereas if you're hanging out with people who you love, that changes the stress profile of your brain. That actually changes your genetic expression too. If you're working in a job that you love, then your brain actually gets into a gear and is able to do a whole lot more things than you would normally think. But then if you're in a job that you hate and you're grinding against it every single day, then it's going to create stress, just like that social example as well. We've even got, and that, like the timing of things as well. So your genes are cyclical through the day. And so if you're inputting things at different times through the day, it'll actually change the way your genes express, which can be very negative if it's at the wrong time. So we see a bunch of disease in shift workers and things like that. So it's really any interaction that changes your body temperature, changes your mindset, changes your thought processes, changes your nutrient profile in your body, and changes the muscle activation. Anything that affects that is going to change your genetic expression. It's everything. And the environment is part of that as well. The water you drink, the air you breathe, everything.
Yeah, okay, cool. So very much just sounds like you've got all of this information that like it can be super overwhelming to be able to be like, right, well, even the water that I'm drinking now can affect my genetic profile. How do we then break that down into simplistic things that we can start to alter to increase our performance, and how would that work?
Yeah, nice one. Okay, so the first thing is obviously the pH measure does that, but I want to talk about one thing before we go there, and that's just to start listening to your body. Now, you may not be able to figure out that the slightly higher copper levels in your water supply is influencing your metabolism, for example. However, what you will notice is that, what does happen if I wake up a little bit later and have a slightly later breakfast? What does happen if I miss a meal? Some people get hangry. Some people actually feel better. What does happen if I don't have dinner at night? Do I actually feel really much better, or do I not sleep too well? And so probably the biggest thing that we do is that we're disconnected from our body, so much so that we don't know what a cue is. And we're following this routine, and I see it all the time with particular bodies that are designed to eat 3 meals a day, and they're doing a body comp prep performance, and they're getting ready for that. They are eating 6 meals a day and training in the morning, and because they've got such a strong influence from their coach and the industry, they're saying, no, there's something wrong with me. There's not something wrong with the protocol. And they've disconnected. They go, no, I feel fine, I feel good. And then as soon as you change them over to the right profile, which is later in the day, training at night and having 3 meals a day, the last 5 kilos drops off them in a heartbeat. And they actually realize, holy crap, I didn't feel this good ever. So a lot of people are walking around with a mask. And the number one thing for performance is, how does my body feel? And what happens when I change this? What happens when I change that? And once you start understanding that, you can operate with any system. The fortunate thing is that the first thing is you can process a lot of complex data in your own brain just by understanding how you feel. That's probably the most empowering thing there. The second thing, pH 360 is easily leading the industry, and really the world when it comes to this personalized health tech. In about 35 minutes, you can measure yourself up with a tape measure questionnaire, and it doesn't give you all the science as to why. It just says you need to eat spinach and you need to eat it 2 times a day, or you need to eat breakfast at this time, dinner at this time. And when you're thinking about that dinner, you should actually think about having this kind of meal. And it's now actually going to go through a process of creating meal plans for people. So it makes it very, very simple. And it's when we start talking about performance, and I guess I gave a couple of examples before, you're going to get outputs on not just the food, the exercise, which is also going to start getting quite programmy as well, which is really going to help you understand what's best for your biomechanics. But it also helps you understand what time is best for you to work, what time is best for you to sleep, the social interactions you might want to have, or how your brain interacts with those social interactions. And the whole reason I'm giving this bit of detail is because what it does is it puts a new lens in front of your face to say, walk this way, look this way for a second, and see how your body feels. Because it comes back to this idea of, when I do this, how does my body feel? When I do this, do I get energy here? When I do this, does it really drain my energy? The secret to performance is having the right information, but also getting the right feedback. And the most powerful thing that I learned as a practitioner is that 50% of the game is the information that you've got. Getting that 50% of the information is incredibly important. Like, getting it right is incredibly important. But listening to your body after you implement stuff, that is the most powerful thing. And then, depending on your goals, when it comes to performance, it's right. What am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to drop body weight? Am I trying to improve my brain stamina? Am I trying to improve my athletic performance? And basically, the more that you can align with your body, the way it's supposed to operate, and you apply that environment to it, the better it will heal, the better it will recover, the more energy it's going to have, and the better you'll be able to achieve anything, the clearer your brain will be. And then, if you want to get really focused on the brain side of things, there's an output of, I should do this between 6 and 7, this between 8 to 9, this between 9 to 10. And we have the science now to understand that there are different hormones happening in different brains at different times. This is the best time to do this. So probably the key messages there, just because I do ramble a little bit. The first is, number one, listen to yourself and start monitoring that. The second is get the right information. And there's nothing like the platform that we're using at the moment in the space that it is right now, for finding out what that information is. And then number three, what are your goals? Because you can modify those first two to any goal that you want to achieve. And then if you're needing more advanced help, then obviously you can work with a sports dietitian. You can work with a qualified practitioner who's fantastic at comp prep or recomposition type work. You can work with an ex-phys who knows what they're doing, a PT who knows what they're doing. You can work with a brain, like a mental performance coach who understands your brain and the genetics behind that, to really then get that expertise out of it as well. But the baseline that everyone can deal with better is just aligning themselves with what's right for them. We've got the technology for that, and then it's just a matter of listening as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the big ones that I've noticed in myself, because I've been doing the program for a while now, is just in terms of that performance aspect. It says in my profile that in the mid-afternoon, I'm generally not very productive. It's a good time to be social with people.
Yeah.
And I've noticed if I haven't got an appointment booked or a call booked during that time, I'm just on Facebook for that entire hour.
Yep.
Consistently wondering why that happens. And then I'm like, check my profile and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And then some of the other changes I've made are around food. I don't eat breakfast now until 7, even though I'm up earlier, because it says that I should do that. And I feel so much better and I feel so much more energetic throughout the day. And I don't feel hungry as early, which is good. And then one of the other major changes was just my dosage of oats. So it says I should only have that 3 to 4 times a week. Yep. If I have it any more than that, then I start to have digestive issues.
Right.
So just finding out that information, previously for a long time, I just have oats every single day.
Yep.
And finding out that information around the dosage made a huge difference to me. And then that just flows on to every area of life. And it just makes everything become so much more effortless when you don't have to deal with things like digestive issues consistently. Do you have other, case studies like that where you've seen people who've had amazing changes in terms of their potential output and performance?
Absolutely. So one that we see, and it just depends on what performance that you're after, but there've been a chick, she's been training for, she did 6 months non-stop with a PT to really improve her strength, really get her fitness levels up. She was working with a dietitian at the same time, doing some really just good stuff, guidelines, straight down the line type stuff, evidence-based from a generic population, which is what all evidence is at this point. And for, 6 months, she was getting a little bit stronger, but her joints were starting to ache. Her weight was not budging at all. And she was trying to really just be able to perform better at work, but the amount of effort that she was expending, and it was actually starting to depress her a little bit, which really just cuts into how clear you are through the day. We, in 4 days of a very specific protocol for her, it was a matter of actually reducing protein right down in her intake. And this seems like the most aggressive thing to do ever, and the opposite to our whole industry. But it's for some bodies, they just don't process it well. It's actually a distraction for their body. It's hard for their body to do it. So what we excuse me for a second. What we found was that in 4 days of doing a very, very specific protocol, she was able to activate her metabolism. She'd been stable with her weight for about 6 months. She lost 3 kilos in the first, 2 kilos in the second, and then came back onto a full diet, exercising later in the afternoon and doing slower, more isometric type exercises. Those things together, all of her joint pain went, all of her digestive issues went, weight is now consistently falling off her. And she understands now, when I do this, I get this result. And it becomes very, very clear for them. Other examples, and I guess more from a mental point of view, is that we've had guys who have just been very tired, finding that similar to you, they've been going through periods of the day where they're quite unproductive. And one of the things that's been really important is there's a specific time for a specific brain, normally between 6 and 8 at night. Whereas if they do meditation there, it restores their brain energy for the next day. And these guys, because they were really productive, like they wanted to be productive their whole day. You know, I get up, I'm an early bird. I wake up at 5:30. I work till 12. I skip lunch. I work from 12 to 10, because my brain allows me to do it, because I'm chasing this dopamine high, which is really dominant in their brain. They've done that, but then all they've had to do is then insert an hour of meditation or 20 minutes of meditation between 6 and 6:30, 6:37. And it is the time when their brain is going through the most amount of stress and they've got the least buffer to it. So if they work through that time, it drains the next day. If they rest during that time, it re-energizes them. So it's that level of specificity which is so critical, and that's just from a brain point of view. And then, I mean, what I see with so many people are the subtleties in the dietary changes. So it's oats are a really good food, and red meat is a good food for some people, and what's another one? Even like sweet potato is a fantastic food, but it's on my list 3 times a week, for example. And when I have it more than that, I actually notice I get a little bit foggy, or my body just feels a little bit off, and I know exactly why that is the case. So really the very special thing about this is that just by understanding the very specifics of what's right for you, and it's not complex now, you just literally need to spend 35 minutes doing an assessment, and all of that information is at your fingertips, and it allows you to take the guesswork out and walk a certain way. And what it does as well, and this is something that you've found too, just from what you were saying, is that, and something that I notice is, now that you know, you're a lot more aware of everything else that goes on in your day too. And so you feel your brain click off on a particular task, and you go, this isn't the right time for that task. And you'll find something that is perfectly aligned with your brain at that time. And so after a while, your awareness becomes so much that you're able to have this very real-time update on what is the best thing that I could be doing with my brain, what is the best training that I could be doing that makes me feel fantastic right now. It gives you that real-time update that allows you to really excel.
Yeah, 100%. And I see that with a lot of the people that I've worked with in terms of putting them through this program as well. It just brings into awareness how important those things are, because previously, if you didn't know that was happening, you just feel like, oh, that's interesting. But if you see that that's the reason why, because your brain is doing something different in that time frame based on when you sit genetically, then you have that data to be able to go, all right, what can I do instead during this time frame? And for me, that's just like booking in a phone call, booking in some interaction with other people, or a podcast or something like that.
Yeah,
it just means that I can have that hour still be productive, but then it's not draining for me or just a waste of time, because that's what I hate, wasting time.
Exactly. Yeah. When you got a mission, it's the last thing you want is procrastination. And it's one of those things where you can judge yourself. It's my brain. It's not good. Like, I'm not doing everything I could do. It's like, actually, no, it just needs something different right now. And that's okay. And acknowledging that your brain is better at certain times rather than needs to always do what what needs to be done. It's not always the case. Yeah.
100%. Hey guys, I just wanted to pause the podcast here for a second to be able to tell you something that I realize many of you may not know about. I've actually just created a brand new advanced training on how to become a peak performer using the 4 key pillars. After all the countless questions from my in person from people, emails from my coaching clients, all of these things, how do I become a peak performer is the most common question that I'm getting. So I've created a new advanced training to be able to walk you step by step through that process, through the 4 essential pillars of that. So if any of the concepts of this podcast have resonated with you, then I would like to invite you to this all new advanced training. You can find this in the Facebook group, which is www.facebook.com/group/Pursuers of Peak Performance, which will also be in the description of this podcast. Be sure to click through to there to get access to this brand new training system, which is going to be an in-depth training so that you can clearly see the steps that you need to go through to become a peak performer within the fitness industry. And those peak performers are those people who get better results in less time. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. It's all about increasing the profits of your business while not having to work more hours. That is ultimately the outcome of becoming a peak performer, so that then you can have much more choices in your life and determine the work-life balance that you want to have at any point in your life. So there we go, guys. That's going to be the all-new training. Be sure to check that out in the Facebook group. And now back to the podcast. What is something that getting your genetic profile is going to tell you about how your brain works compared to other people as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the most profound thing that I've found with the education that we do, and also the clients that I'm working with, is that people who are in couples realize that they are different to the person that they're in a couple with often, and in fact opposite. That's probably the most fascinating thing, is we see these super early bird people with night owl partners, and so from a probably the first thing is that if you realize that you're different, then you also acknowledge that other people are different. And even if we just stop the sentence right there, like that's all you need to know ever, is that the person I'm about to talk to is going to interpret the world in a completely different way to the way I'm interpreting it. Then you're going to come in with less judgment. And that's very important, because we can get deep on this if we want to, but I won't go too deep on that. You can ask more questions if you want me to get deep. But what it comes down to is if you can recognize that you're different and that they're different, then you come in with a much more accepting frame, and it's less stressful. You have less expectations over who that person needs to be. And so the more you dig down into who you are, and this is effectively what this profile does, it actually maps, the chemistry of your body and how your brain is supposed to work and how it interacts with people. Once you understand, I actually, in my brain particularly, I get focused on my work and I don't think about other people. And so my partner gets pretty annoyed with that a lot, because she's got this natural frame that thinks about other people. And I've come across like a cold asshole, when in fact, I'm just focused on my work and, But what I've had to learn is, right, in order for her to see that I care, I need to allocate time to thinking about caring for her. And that's the way my brain works. I compartmentalize things really, really well. Whereas other people actually dance across tasks, and they can do lots of things at once. They can care for someone over here. They can tap an email over here. They can look after a child over here. They can do this over there. And it doesn't drain their brain as much, or it actually get a fair bit done. Whereas my brain's not like that. And so me understanding that I need to compartmentalize things means that I don't feel so bad about when I'm working, when I'm with my family, I'm with my family, when I'm with my friends, I'm with my friends. It actually really enhances those experiences. So instead of being concerned that I'm not taking care of everything at once, I can actually just take care of one thing at a time, which I'm really good at. And then also acknowledging that some people are really, really good at that. And knowing, for example, my dad, he loves just socializing and just chatting. And knowing that he likes that, I can then make sure that I give him that time, and we can have that connection at the level that he needs it. So it really allows you to make better relationships, whether it be work, whether it be with clients, whether it be with family, because you understand a whole lot more about what is going to make that person happy. And the example that I always give this, people say, well, we should all be happy by ourselves. We shouldn't need other people to help us be happy. But, you see someone outside in the freezing cold and they're cold and you've got an extra jacket. You go and give them an extra jacket. And what understanding people's brains does is it helps you understand what is their warm jacket. Is a compliment a warm jacket to them? And if so, I want to give it to them because it's going to make them feel amazing, rather than us getting stuck in our ego of saying, no, everyone's got to be happy. I won't give compliments. They should be able to be happy by themselves. It really opens up this idea that it gives you much better access to what's going to really help someone. And, when you help their brain, you're going a long way to helping their health as well, which is a very important message. That was a detailed answer.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Love the detail.
Yeah.
In terms of that, so we've been very much focused on, I guess, getting peak performance out of someone, which is generally ourselves that we're talking about. How does this then relate into a coaching example of working with other people? How does something like this mean that you can get more peak performance with the people that are our clients?
Yeah, that's good. So the first thing is that with my clients, and I've had anywhere from, big four CEOs right through to mum and pup who are dealing with their diabetes. And what I know that it provides is complete confidence in what information you're giving is right for them. There are the problem with performance without really objective tools is trial and error. Oh, let's try this. And, if you're going through a strength program, you could be there for 3 months, and you realize then that your rep range was wrong for their muscle physiology, and they've got 50% of the strength gains that they might have otherwise got. So the first thing is it just takes guesswork out. Doing a test like this, you aren't questioning the information that you're providing now, which is so, so powerful for you to stand confident in your method. The second thing is that it frees up your time. This has been the most rewarding thing in my practice. I used to just literally educate people for 30 minutes out of a 30-minute assessment effectively, and then get no time to do any coaching. The thing that we are here for as health professionals is to move this person in, help this person grow, and not just eat the right food or do the right exercise, but actually get the mindset of someone who loves themselves enough to do the right thing for themselves every day. And you can't do that just by dumping information on people. But the way you do that is by interacting with them and understanding how their brain is going to be motivated and carry out the information. We're all hanging out with an internet full of unlimited information, yet how we put that into practice, you still put your hands up. Like every single conference that I do, you say, how many of you are eating, 5 serves of vegetables? Or how many, actually, who knows what a healthy food is? And they all say vegetables. And you say 5% of Australians get enough vegetables in their diet based on this 5 serves, right? So the knowledge is there, but the application isn't. And what this kind of tech does is it frees up your brain from having to figure out, should I be including spinach 3 times this week? It takes care of all of that. And what you can now do is say, right, we've got to achieve this stuff. What's the best way to go about it? Let's talk about those barriers. Let's talk about the things that are getting in the road, because the worst thing that can happen to a health professional is you have this amazing session where you feel like you nail all this information and then they don't do anything. And that's because you haven't spent time on how are you going to implement this? How can we create safety checks and measures and balances to ensure that this week is going to be a really successful week? And that's all mindset stuff. It's all priority stuff. It's got nothing to do with, the uncoupling protein in the mitochondria when you have a little bit more omega-3. Like that actually doesn't matter. The only important thing is, does that fish or does that pill get into their mouth? And does it happen regularly? And does it happen in a way where they feel really good about it? And so by freeing up that time of having to do the really heavy mental lifting and effectively doing stuff that the human brain can't do, there's too many variables to calculate it all. It gives you that chance to work with a person so they execute. And the difference between performance and no performance is execution.
Yeah, cool. In terms of that, one of the biggest things I see is like every coach, every trainer is like, right, this is the perfect plan for the person. However, then they don't implement it. How does this then help in terms of coaching based on that person's mind compared to someone else in the circle? Like you gave the example of someone eating 5 or 6 meals a day might not be beneficial to them.
Perfect.
How does this work in with that?
Yeah, got it. Thank you. The big thing here right now is understanding what motivates a brain and what drives a brain. And what we know, what we've seen from this science is that particular bodies and particular body shapes, as I was speaking about earlier, there's infinite amounts of types, and there's 6 major types. We can talk about 3 major ones right now, just to get a bit of a sense of it. There'll be one person, when we're talking about motivating them, they need information. They just need information. If you give them the information, they go, oh, that makes sense. Why would I do anything else that doesn't make sense? They are going to be the person that you see very infrequently. They're going to be a person that you see every 3 months just to track their data, just to make sure that they've got the information. They'll come back to you with a bunch of questions. And they'll email you because they generally won't want to spend as much money with you either. And they will just be asking for scientific references and rationalizations for why we're doing what we're doing. And once that all logs in their brain is very logical, and it says, okay, that makes sense, that checks out. Okay, I'm just going to organize that into my calendar and I'm going to get it done. And these people are going to need a lot less touchy-feely type stuff. Now, I'll come back to them in a second because it's important we understand the comparison. We then have someone at the other end of the spectrum who is complete nurture. And you'll sit down with them for 20 minutes talking about talking about science. And they'll, at the end of it, they'll say, oh, well, that's lovely, dear. That's lovely. And they won't really hear you. They won't really, all they want is the connection with you. And you really, the only thing that matters to them is that you get to have social chats for 25 minutes and then 5 minutes of goal setting of, we're going to get this done this week. Can you do that for me? They are going to buy into you as a person because they are all about family. They're all about you being part of their family. They're going to know more about your girlfriend and your dog and your parents and all their birthdays. They're going to know more about that than you are, because they really invest in people, and their connection, their motivation is commitment to you and commitment to their loved ones. So this will often be when you can use, wouldn't it be great for you to be a healthy grandma and be able to support your grandkids? And they'll say, my God, that is the only thing that I want to do. Whereas you say that to the facts and figures guys, and they're like, yeah, I don't really care about that so much. I just got to get my exercise volume to this much on my graph, and I want to get my skin folds down to this amount in the next 4 weeks. Like, what do we need to do that? They don't need that external nurturing family love motivation. They just need the data, and they need to be kept accountable to the data. Whereas this person up here, the way you support them is by texting them every day and being like they're your new best friend and committing to them more than they commit to themselves, and making sure you're there to support them all of the time. That person is going to be your client for life because they're going to commit to you as a person, and it's without talking any science. And they are easily the most overwhelmed when it comes to dumping lots of information on them, because they don't want lots of information dumped on them. They just want to feel good, and they just want to be here for you. And a perfect example, I had a client in yesterday, and I said, oh, what are you here for today? We're about 6 months into our program. And she said, I'm just here to see you. I was like, yeah, but surely you want to get something out of it, because my brain's thinking I've got to provide value, I've got to give science. She said, no, I'm here to see you. This is why I'm here. I was like, okay, cool. And I know this stuff, and it still takes me by surprise because our brains are so different. So understanding that some people actually commit to you, not the science, not the weight loss. They're committing to you or their family, and the behaviors they need to do are just part of that commitment. We then have another type of brain, which is the real challenge, variety type of brain. And this is a brain that can deal with a little bit of science. They'll ask for more information if they want it, but they're actually much better off being challenged. It's like, well, the last guy did this in 4 weeks. The record for this is actually 3 weeks. What do you think you can do it in? And that will then stimulate them straight into action. So while the first person that we spoke about is very information, I want to get information first and then I'll do it. The second person is, I want relationship first and then I'll do it. The third person is, I just want to do it. I don't want to think. I just want to get into action. If I can smell this and touch it and feel it and move now, or eat this first, or do this straight away, then I'll want to. And so when you're motivating this person, even from you need to convince them in the moment that this is a good thing to do. And you do that through challenge and through social competition. And then once they've agreed to it, you then get them into action straight away, and you set them shorter term goals that are maybe 4 weeks in length of a challenge or something like that. But the most important thing for this brain as well is that it needs variety. It needs to change things all the time. It needs excitement. And if you're not providing that excitement, you'll lose them. You might be a person who loves information, and so you're boringly giving information and saying, no, let's get into a routine with this. Let's get really consistent. They're saying, you are boring me to death with your science and your routine. I want change. I want spontaneity. I don't want to know what my program is. I just want to turn up and you run me through it and challenge the hell out of me. That's going to be one type of person. Whereas the relationship type of person they're going to take more time. They're going to want a bit more time to prepare themselves for the exercise session. It's going to help if you gently walk them through what you're going to do first, let them know what's going to happen, and then nurture them through that session, and not just beating them to death, which is such the attitude of so many of the industry, because we think we like being challenged, we like variety, we like high intensity stuff, so everybody does. So just to summarize real quick, we've got people who are very motivated by information, and that might seem boring to a lot of you, but people just want information. That makes sense. I'm going to go do it. We have another person who needs relationship from you. They need family relationship from you. And if you can provide that, they will do anything, and they'll commit to you forever. And then the final of these three is a real challenge variety. So they need things that are unexpected. They need things that are going to change. They need a dynamic nature in your programming, and they need competition. And that's the thing that really drives them and keeps them on track. So there's derivations and combinations of those six. And then the program actually maps, you're an activator, or you're a challenge type person, but you've actually got a whole lot of slow, steady genes in your brain as well. So you're not going to be as competitive as the hardcore competitive challenge type person. Your individual profile says you've got this competition nature, but you actually like things to be steady and not chaotic. And so it gives you information on how you can adjust the suggestions for those types of people, which gives you unparalleled insight into people's brains. And if you can build that rapport, the motivation is a very easy thing to manifest, and also to continue forever.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. I guess probably the best way to explain it is, whenever you're working with someone, you can either be like trying to swim against the current consistently, or have that base information where you can basically just go exactly with the current and become so much more effortless. And then peak performance becomes effortless in your life, comparative to just working your ass off, trying to do training that is not aligned to your genetic profile, or working, I guess, on someone's mindset, which is not against their genetic profile. It's like you're just consistently swimming against that current. When you have that information, it's dramatically just makes that shift of going with the current. Do you find that as well?
Absolutely. It's just, and once you start this, you can't take these lenses off. And so you naturally get into a state, like, 6 months down the way, you get into a state of, this is the person I'm looking at. I need to change my language. And it just happens. Like, the motivation and the connection and the rapport just happens all of a sudden, because you're prepared for it and you've adapted to it. So, and that's a beautiful way of explaining it, actually. Like, with all of these things, when you're doing the thing that's right for your body, it just flows. And when you're doing the right thing for what their brain needs, the motivation is just there. You're not grinding. And I would suggest that if you're grinding, you're doing the wrong thing. It's your body is designed to be assistive to what you want to do, not preventative and inhibitory. So if you're doing something and your body's inhibiting it, it's because you're doing the wrong thing. So, and that goes for your clients as well. If they're fighting against you, it's because you're choosing the wrong fight, or you're delivering it in a way it's not actually you or the information. It's how their body responds to that information, and you've got to adjust. So yeah, absolutely. Going with the flow, or creating flow is much, much easier when you know this information. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree. The only thing there would be just focusing on being in that flow and being in that alignment, I guess, compared to, like, the majority of the things that I see with people is, as soon as you put labels on things like right or wrong, they instantly have that layer of guilt. So just having that focus of being in flow and being in alignment, rather than having, I guess, that distinction of right versus wrong. Do you find that as well with, like, a lot of the clients you work with?
Yeah, totally. And that's a really interesting point. And that whole right or wrong, that's a big mindset that, if you can shift, makes a world of difference. So the way I kind of explain it to my clients is, if you walk the way your body's supposed to walk, there'll be a natural momentum that occurs to say, I feel good doing this. Like, this is great. I'm enjoying this. And then they go to another environment, for example, a meal that's maybe not as nutritious for them, and their body will say, this hurts. You're no longer in flow anymore. And it's not about right or wrong. It's just about, how do I want to feel? And people say, well, I want to feel good. And this equation is the thing that allows me to feel good. So that it's a really interesting one, because the right or wrong creates a deprivation. If I say I can't have, or I have to do this, then immediately they go into deprivation of, well, I'm restricted. I now don't have freedom. And the big message that I drive all the time is you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. But what I'd like you to do is take notice of how your body responds. And you'll find that when you do the things that are suggested for you, your body will respond better. And then you get freedom of choice. So we increase awareness, which is the big thing that you're doing as a coach. You increase their awareness so that they can make choice. And then when they take action on that, you evaluate the result of that action. And if you can create that sort of flow of things, then people get out of this idea of right or wrong. They just go, well, I actually just want to live really well. And I live really well when I do this. And I feel really great and empowered by that, as opposed to restricted into this. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree. And then I guess I notice as well that certain people on different points start to focus on that much more compared to other ones. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we find that, so that the information type mind, that one that we were talking about before, if the information makes sense straight away, they'll get into it straight away, and they'll be feeling good, and they'll be feeling good for quite a while. And then what will happen is that they'll get so embedded in their routine that they forget to keep listening. They figure, oh, this worked for me, so it makes sense to keep doing it. I'm just going to keep doing it ad nauseum. And the way that that expresses for them is, I don't feel so good anymore. And then they go back and revisit their material, and they've just gone off it a little bit. So whereas they don't have that deprivation because they don't have the emotional attachment to doing stuff. But what happens is they get stuck in rigidity. And so that it's only after a while that their energy is starting to go down that they then have to review. Whereas we find with that emotional nurturing type brain, they're very emotionally attached to their food and to enjoyment, because for them it provides a safety mechanism for them. So it's, I don't feel safe, or if I have food, then I'll have more energy supplies, which means that if a famine comes, I'll be all good. So that's a big one for them. So they get that have to and trapping feeling excessively. And that happens very early on. And going through that conversation I just had about feeling this way, but they need to feel it for a week. You really need to convince them, I just need you to do this for a week, and then you can do whatever you want after that. And in that way, they get to have freedom, but still really focused for this week. But after that week, they're feeling good enough to then want to continue it. Whereas the third type, it's if you limit any freedom from that challenging, activatory, variety-seeking type brain, they're going to leave you. They're going to hate you if you try and limit them too much. So it's about, from the outset, it's about allowing them to make the terms, so that they are they're only getting angry at themselves as opposed to you, because they'll walk away from you, but they can handle being angry at themselves, because that's what happens. So it's about setting up the conversation where you're not putting any rules around them. You're effectively saying, this is where we need to get to. This is as fast as anyone can do it. How do you reckon you're going to get there? And then they'll come to you and say, well, how do you think? And you say, well, the best things for you are here. Which ones of these do you want to have a crack at? And then they make their decision as to how they're going to get there and how far they're going to take it. And in this way, those brains, they really come up with that same problem, but in different ways. And this is one of the really important things, that in order to really manage your client base, you've got to understand these key differences between people, so that you're allowing them to be in a state that they love. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. 100% agree with that. I guess then, if you were to go back to, I don't know, when you first started in the industry, what advice would you give to someone who was just starting out in the fitness industry based on everything that you know right now?
Yeah, okay. Number one is, you'll never know enough. There will never be a time where you have all of the answers, and it's okay to not know everything, is probably the first thing. And what flows on from that is, the best thing that you can do is surround yourself with geniuses, or genii, whatever the word is, and surround yourself with people who are experts in their field. And you'll find that experts are always growing. They're never stagnant. They're never static. They're never, I know it all now. This is me. So the first thing is acknowledge that you're never going to ever know enough. And this is important for me because I'm an information person. The second thing is surround yourself with absolute legends and give more than what you get. So offer free services, offer help, put in more, knowing that it will be returned either later or later in your career. It's really doing more than what you're paid to do, giving more than what you get, and doing it to the right people, the people who inspire you. Give as much as you can to those individuals. The third is as you go through your learning, always know that it is going to differ for different people. And this is, I would recommend everyone get some sort of grounding in PH360 or the sciences behind personalized health at the beginning of their profession. This stuff is very accessible now, as far as it's easy to understand. And what that does, it allows you from day one to navigate different people. And, because I spent 10 years doing a non-personalized approach, and I had to relearn all of my information and make it fit this personalized health approach, which is way more accurate, way more powerful. So if you start with that base, then where you're going to be when you're my equivalent, which is 13 years down the track, it's not even a question of how far ahead of me you're going to be when it comes to what you can do for a client, the relationship you can create with them. So those three things: know that you're never going to know enough or know everything. Surround yourself with people and give to those people more than what you're getting. There's a real attitude of I just need stuff provided to me, and you need to scrap that if you want to get anywhere. And third is to set up, if you're going to set up a foundation of your practice, a foundation of your business, do it in a personalized way, because even sales and marketing relates to personalization of the brain. And okay, you're very, very good at that. And this is every part of your business, every part of your life is going to be influenced by the differences between people, and not applying just a blanket approach. So that would be my starting points if I had to name three.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be able to share your wisdom with us. It's amazing information that I know that a lot of people can start to apply to be able to get even more results for their clients in terms of helping them pursue peak performance, and then also for themselves as well. Where would the best place for people to get in contact with you be if they want more info?
If they want more info, the best thing would be to email hpsupport@ph360.me. So that's hpsupport@ph360.me. If they're wanting to just go on and do some research themselves, the best place is www.ph360.me/health-professional. And there, or you can just go to the ph360.me website. There's a health professional tag, and that then has a bunch of our resources, webinars, YouTube channels, where you can get a heap of free information, and also find out about how you can train to be a practitioner as well, and really take this stuff to the next level.
Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks again for sharing. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. It's always extremely educational when we have a chat. So thanks again.
No worries, mate. Great to be here.
There we go, guys. There's today's episode. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to pursue your own peak performance by listening to this podcast. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to give back to the podcast, the best way to be able to do this is to be able to share any of these episodes with your friends, family, or co-workers. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment or a 5-star review, as these mean the world to us. Be sure to check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/pursuers of peak performance, to join the conversation and get access to all of the episodes before they come out on the other platforms. Thanks again for listening, guys. Catch you in the next episode.